Dr. Virelia was not an ordinary doctor. She came from a faraway planet called Zelthera, known for its advanced medicine and technology. On her home planet, she was one of the top doctors, smart, fast, and confident. But many said she was also too proud. She often looked down on other species, especially humans. She believed they were weak, emotional, and not able to handle pain the way her own kind could. One day, Virelia was chosen to be part of a special alien exchange program. She would travel to Earth and work with human doctors and researchers. The goal was to share knowledge between the two worlds. It was an important mission, but Virelia didn't take it seriously. In her mind, she was only going to Earth to teach the humans, not to learn anything from them. When she first landed on Earth, she didn't hide her feelings. She looked around the hospital and frowned at everything, the tools, the machines, even the uniforms. So simple, she whispered under her breath. She believed humans were far behind Zeltherans in every way. During her first week, she watched human doctors treat patients. She saw people cry, shout, and even faint during minor procedures. "Why do they scream so much?" she asked one of the Earth doctors. "They act like children. On Zelthera, even young ones can stay silent during surgery." The Earth doctor smiled politely, trying not to take offense. But the truth was, everyone noticed Virelia's arrogance. She rarely smiled. She never praised anyone. And she spoke as if Earth was just a poor village in the universe. Still, many doctors respected her skills and gave her space to work. Then, something unexpected happened. One day, a new patient was brought into the research lab. He was a quiet man named Eli. He had signed up to be a volunteer in a new medical study involving alien technology. Virelia glanced at his file and didn't think much of him. Another soft human, she thought. He'll cry like the others. The test was meant to study pain tolerance. A device from Zelthera would gently stimulate the nerves to measure how much discomfort the person could handle. Usually, humans only lasted a short while before asking the test to stop. As the test began, Virelia stood behind the glass window, watching closely. The alien machine started its work. At first, nothing happened. Eli sat calmly, his face relaxed. Minutes passed. The machine increased its levels slowly. Still, Eli didn't move. He didn't wince, frown, or even blink too much. Virelia raised an eyebrow. "Strange," she murmured. She checked the machine again. Everything was working. Fine. The pain levels were now quite high enough to make any average human pull away, but Eli just sat there, quietly breathing. "Is he hiding the pain?" Virelia asked aloud. One of the human nurses replied, "No, he's always been like that." Very calm, very strong. Virelia narrowed her eyes. This didn't fit her belief. "He must be pretending," she said. "Or maybe he's been given something to block the pain." They tested again. The results were the same. Eli showed no signs of pain. After the session, Virelia walked into the lab and looked at him directly. Eli stood up and gave a small, friendly smile. "Was everything okay, doctor?" Virelia didn't answer right away. She scanned his face, looking for any weakness, any sign of discomfort, but there was none. She was used to being in control, used to being the smartest in the room. But for the first time since coming to Earth, she felt puzzled. The next day, she reviewed the results again. They were clear. Eli had tolerated pain levels equal to or higher than many Zeltherans, and he did it without any training or tools. This shook Virelia deeply. She spent the rest of the day thinking about him. Could it be possible that humans were not as weak as she believed? Could pain tolerance be more than just biology? Could it come from the mind or the heart? That night, she wrote in her private log, "Subject 11 named Eli showed pain tolerance far beyond expected human levels. No signs of discomfort. This may suggest that human endurance is more complex than previously thought. Further study is required." But more than research, Something else was growing inside her, a curiosity she hadn't felt in years. Who was this man who didn't flinch when he should have? How had he trained his body or his mind to stay so calm? Virelia didn't like being wrong, but deep inside, she knew this case wasn't normal. Eli wasn't just strong, he was different. And for the first time, the proud doctor from Zelthera started to think that maybe she had judged humans too. Quickly. The next morning, she requested to lead more tests, not just on Eli, but on other humans too. But her main focus remained on him. She needed answers. And without knowing it, this was the beginning of a journey that would change her forever. Dr. Virelia could not stop thinking about Eli. His calm face during the pain test stayed in her mind. She had studied many life forms, even creatures from other galaxies. But she had never seen a human like him. Her belief that humans were weak had been shaken. Now, she wanted to know more. Not just as a scientist, but out of curiosity. The next day, she arranged a private meeting with Eli. She wanted to talk to him face to face, not behind a glass wall or through machines. Eli entered the room quietly. He sat down, relaxed as always. His clothes were simple, and his posture showed no pride. He looked like an ordinary man. But Virelia now knew he wasn't ordinary at all. "I want to ask you a few questions," she said, holding her tablet. "Sure," Eli replied calmly. She looked into his eyes. "During the pain test, you didn't react. You didn't even flinch. Why?" Eli smiled a little. "I've learned to stay calm." "That's not a real answer," she replied. "What I mean is, how do you stay calm? Most humans can't even last half the time." Eli was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, softly, "Pain is something I've lived with. It doesn't scare me anymore." Virelia frowned. "Explain." Eli nodded. "Years ago, I had an accident. A fire broke out in my building. I was trapped for hours. I lost part of my leg. The pain was too much at first, but slowly, over time, I learned how to live with it. I also lost someone I loved that night. That hurt more than anything." Virelia blinked. She hadn't expected such an answer. She thought pain was only a physical reaction. She had never considered emotional pain as part of it. "So," she said slowly, "you are saying emotional pain made you stronger?" "Yes," Eli said. "It changed me. Now when I feel pain, I remind myself I've already been through worse. That's how I stay calm." Virelia sat back in her chair. Her mind was full of thoughts. On Zelthera, emotions were not discussed often. People there focused on logic, numbers, and facts. They did not talk about loss or sadness. It was considered unnecessary. She realized something very new. Humans were strong in a different way. Later that day, Virelia met with the other alien doctors and shared her findings. "There's something unusual about this subject," she told them. "His strength comes not only from his body, but from his experiences. He has suffered, and that suffering made him more resistant to pain." One of the doctors shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. Pain is pain. It is a biological reaction." "But what if," she replied, "there is more to pain than we know? What if memory, heart, and emotion play a role in how it is handled?" The other doctors were not convinced, but Virelia had made up her mind. She would dig deeper. She asked Eli to join a special part of her study. He agreed, as long as he could help others. That surprised her again. Most volunteers wanted money, fame, or benefits, but Eli only wanted to make things better for people like him. Virelia began a new series of tests, not just measuring physical reactions, but also asking questions about life, memories, and emotions. She watched Eli answer everything with honesty. He never showed anger or ego. He was kind, even when she asked very personal questions. As time passed, Varelia started to feel respect, real, deep respect for him. She saw that strength wasn't always loud or physical. Sometimes it was quiet and hidden, like Eli's strength. One day, after a long test, she said to him, "You are different from what I expected." He smiled again. "How so?" "I thought humans were soft. I thought they couldn't handle discomfort. I was wrong." Eli didn't laugh or mock her. He just nodded. "Many people are stronger than they appear. You just have to look closer." That sentence stayed in her heart. For the first time in her life, Varelia began to question her own beliefs. Maybe her world wasn't perfect. Maybe her people didn't understand everything. Maybe she had more to learn than to teach. She started observing other human patients with new eyes. She noticed small things: an old woman holding her grandchild's hand during surgery, a father staying awake all night beside his sick son, a child smiling even after falling down. These were not signs of weakness. These were signs of courage and love. One evening, as she walked outside the hospital, she looked up at Earth's sky. It was simple, without the glowing stars of Zelthera, yet it felt peaceful. She had come to Earth thinking she would only stay for a short time, but now she wasn't so sure. Varelia returned to her room and opened her tablet. She began writing a new report. This time, it wasn't filled with pride. It was filled with wonder. "Today, I learned that pain is not only a physical test. It is also an emotional journey. Humans may not have the strongest skin or bones, but many carry strength in their hearts. They survive storms I can't imagine, and yet they smile, love, and live on. This makes them strong in a way that science cannot fully explain." She paused. Then she added one last line. "Maybe, just maybe, I came here to learn, not to teach." And with that, Dr. Varelia, the proud alien doctor, began to change. After weeks of observation, Dr. Varelia began to see the world differently. She had always believed her own kind, the Zeltherans, were the most advanced and strongest species in the galaxy. But now, as she spent more time among humans, she realized that strength could take many forms. Still, deep inside, part of her scientific mind could not fully accept it. She needed more proof. One person, Eli, could be special, but what if he was just rare? What if other humans were not like him? She wanted to be sure. So, she requested permission to conduct a controlled challenge, a series of tests that would compare pain tolerance, both physical and emotional, between a small group of Zeltherans and humans. The Earth doctors were unsure at first, worried it might be too harsh, but Varelia promised the tests would be safe, ethical, and respectful. Eli agreed to take part. He said quietly, "If this helps you understand us better, I'll do it." The test included both physical endurance tasks and stress response situations. One involved sitting with hands in ice-cold water for as long as possible. Another included wearing a mild but uncomfortable vibration device on the back for 30 minutes. There were also memory-based challenges, where participants had to recall stressful moments and speak about how they dealt with them. The test day came. The lab was quiet. Earth doctors and alien observers stood around the testing room. On one side, 3 Zeltheran volunteers, strong, well-trained, and confident. On the other, 3 humans, including Eli. Varelia watched closely. At first, the Zeltherans were calm, steady, and ahead in every task. Their bodies were naturally built to resist pain. Their skin was thicker. Their heart rate was slower. Everything looked like it was going as expected. But then came the emotional resilience section. The human participants, one by one, spoke about their struggles, loss of loved ones, family problems, accidents, failures, and fears. They shared their feelings, not with shame, but with quiet strength. Eli, as always, spoke last. He talked about the night of the fire again, but this time he also shared how he had helped others escape, even while injured himself. The room fell silent. When the Zeltharan participants were asked to do the same, they hesitated. Talking about emotions was not normal on their planet. They were trained to stay silent about feelings. One of them simply said, "We do not speak of such things." Virelia's eyes widened. For the first time, she saw a kind of weakness in her own people. Not the weakness of body, but the weakness of fear. The fear to feel. After the test, she met with Eli again. They walked together in the hospital garden where the evening breeze touched the trees gently. "You were right," she said quietly. "Humans are strong. Strong in ways we didn't measure before." Eli smiled. "Sometimes the hardest pain isn't in the body. It's in the heart. And when you survive that, you become different." Virelia looked at him for a moment. "We never talk about these things on my planet. We believe emotions are distractions." "But they're not," Eli said. "They guide us. They make us human. Maybe that's what your people are missing." That night, Virelia sat alone in her room, thinking deeply. She remembered something from her own life, a moment she had hidden away for years. When she was a young trainee, she had lost her younger brother during a mission. But she had never cried. She had never spoken about it. Her mentors told her to move on, to stay strong, and to bury her feelings deep inside. So she did. But now, as she thought about Eli's words, she felt something stir in her heart. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of that old loss, and with it, a quiet tear rolled down her cheek. The next day, she called for a private session with the other Zeltharan doctors. She stood before them and spoke honestly. "I've made a mistake," she began. "I came here believing we had nothing to learn. But humans have taught me something we never studied: emotional strength. It is real and it matters." Some of the other doctors were surprised. One of them, Dr. Colrin, asked, "Are you saying they are stronger than us?" "I'm saying," Virelia replied, "that strength is not only measured by what the body can endure. It's also in the courage to speak, to feel, and to keep going after loss. We ignored that, but we shouldn't anymore." There was silence. Then, slowly, a few nodded. Later that week, Virelia was invited to speak at a small science gathering held by both Earth and Zeltharan experts. She stood at the podium, looked at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, and said, "True strength is quiet. It doesn't always come with power or muscle. Sometimes it's found in the person who gets up again after falling, in the one who continues to love, even after heartbreak, in the one who feels pain, but chooses kindness anyway. On Earth, I have seen that strength, and I am changed by it." Her words touched everyone in the room. After the event, Eli met her outside the hall. "You spoke from the heart?" he said. Virelia nodded. "I think I'm learning how to do that." They both smiled. What had started as a medical mission had now become a journey of understanding. Dr. Virelia was no longer just a teacher. She was also a student, and the lesson was clear. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and those whispers, if we listen, can change everything. Days turned into weeks, and Dr. Virelia's time on Earth continued. But she was no longer the same person who had landed on the planet with a proud heart and cold words. Her thoughts had changed. Her understanding had deepened. Now, she saw humans differently. And more than that, she saw herself differently too. The more time she spent with the Earth doctors and patients, the more she understood the beautiful complexity of the human heart. People faced pain every day, some physical, some emotional, but they kept moving forward. They helped each other. They laughed even after crying. They cared deeply, even when they were hurt. This kind of strength was new to Virelia. Her growing Friendship with Eli also played a big role in this change. He was always calm and thoughtful. He never acted proud, even though he had shown great bravery and strength. He taught her things without even trying, just by being himself. One morning, Virelia was invited to a small local school. The children had heard that a doctor from another planet was staying in their city, and they were excited to meet her. At first, Virelia was unsure. She had never spoken to children before. On her home planet, kids didn't often interact with scientists, but Eli encouraged her. "Children are the best teachers," he said. "They ask honest questions, and they'll show you how to look at life with open eyes." So she went. In the classroom, small hands reached out to greet her. Bright eyes looked at her with wonder. The children were not scared of her alien appearance. In fact, they were curious and full of joy. "Do you eat pizza?" one child asked. "Can you fly a spaceship?" asked another. "Do you have pets on your planet?" Virelia smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in a long while. She answered each question kindly, and in return the children gave her drawings, hugs, and laughter. She felt something warm inside her chest, a feeling she hadn't known before. Maybe this was what humans called happiness. After the visit, she sat outside the school building thinking about everything. Eli came to sit beside her. "You're changing," he said gently. Virelia looked at him. I'm starting to feel things I don't fully understand. Like warmth in the heart, connection, even sadness, but in a peaceful way." "That's part of being human," Eli said, "and part of being alive." That night, Virelia looked up at the stars. She thought about Zelthera. Her home was beautiful and advanced, yes, but it was quiet, cold, full of rules and silence. People didn't laugh out loud or cry in public. They didn't sit under trees just to feel the wind. She had never realized what she was missing until now. Later that week, an emergency struck the hospital. A small earthquake shook the city. The building remained safe, but many people came in with injuries, cuts, broken bones, and emotional shock. The doctors were under pressure. Virelia rushed to help. She moved from room to room, treating patients with speed and care. But something different happened this time. She didn't just focus on the physical wounds. She also spoke gently, offered comfort, and even held the hands of scared children. At one point, she saw a nurse trying to calm an old man who had lost his wife many years ago and now lived alone. The man was shaking, not from injury, but from fear. Virelia sat beside him and whispered softly, "You are safe. You are not alone." The man slowly calmed down, tears filling his eyes. And for the first time, Virelia didn't try to stop the tears. She accepted them. When the emergency was over and everything settled, the hospital director thanked her. "Your help saved many lives today," he said. Virelia nodded but looked around at the humans still helping one another. "I only followed their example," she said quietly. Back in the lab, Virelia sat with Eli once more. He had helped during the emergency, too, as a volunteer. "Do you still think humans are weak?" he asked with a small smile. Virelia looked at him, her eyes calm. "No. In fact, I now think you may be stronger than us in ways we never measured." Eli leaned back in his chair. "That means a lot coming from you." Virelia hesitated, then said something she hadn't told anyone before. "When I lost my brother many years ago, I didn't cry. I was told not to. But now, I wish I had. I think I would have healed better." Eli didn't speak right away. Then he said, "It's never too late to feel something, to heal, or to begin again." Those words touched her deeply. That evening, Virelia made a decision. She opened her communication device and contacted the Zeltheran Council. They had been expecting her to return soon, but she told them, "I need more time. I'm learning important things here, not about machines or medicine, but about life, feeling, and human strength." The council was surprised, but they allowed her request. Viralia stayed, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Earth had become more than a mission. It had become a mirror, showing her things about herself she had never seen. It had become a teacher, giving her lessons no science book had ever taught. She continued her work with the humans. She helped, she listened, she learned, and she smiled. More often now. Because sometimes, the greatest discoveries are not found in machines or numbers, but in the hearts of people who carry silent strength, deep love, and the courage to feel. Time passed, and Dr. Virelia's work on Earth entered a new phase. What had started as a short mission had become a deep journey of discovery, not only about humans, but about herself. She had learned many things, about pain, about strength, and about the true meaning of kindness. Her relationship with Eli grew stronger, too. He was no longer just a patient or a volunteer. He was her friend and partner in learning. Together, they worked on new medical ideas that mixed the best of Zeltharan technology with the powerful human spirit. One day, Virelia received a message from the Zeltharan Council. They wanted her to return home and share her findings. It was an important request. They had high hopes for her report. But Virelia hesitated. She had grown attached to Earth. She saw things she wanted to explore further. She called Eli and shared the message. "I am torn," she said. "Should I go back? Or stay here a little longer?" Eli smiled kindly. "The choice is yours. But remember, growth takes time. You must do what feels right for you." Virelia thought carefully. Then she made a decision. She would stay on Earth for a while longer, not just as a visitor, but as someone who belonged. She wanted to build bridges between their worlds to bring respect and understanding. As the days went by, Virelia and Eli worked on a new project. It was a healing center where humans and Zeltharans could learn from each other. The goal was simple: to combine the best knowledge of both planets and create a place where pain was understood, not just as a physical problem, but as a part of life that could be faced with courage. The center quickly became a symbol of hope. People from all over the city came to visit. Some came for treatment, others came to learn about new ideas. Virelia found joy in teaching, but also in listening. She shared stories of Zelthera, but also learned the stories of Earth's people. One afternoon, Eli brought a group of children to visit the center. Their faces were bright with curiosity. Virelia looked at them and remembered her first visit to the school when the children had warmed her heart with their laughter and questions. She knelt down and asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" One little girl raised her hand, shyly. "I want to be a doctor, like you." Virelia smiled. "That is a wonderful dream." The children laughed and played, and for a moment, the worries of the world seemed far away. One evening, Virelia sat with Eli on a quiet hill overlooking the city lights. The stars twinkled above them. She spoke softly. "Thank you, Eli. Without you, I would never have seen the strength in humans. I would never have understood what pain truly means." Eli looked at her with gentle eyes. "You taught me too, Virelia. You showed me that even those from other worlds can learn to feel. You taught me about courage in a new way." They both smiled, feeling a quiet peace. In the months that followed, Virelia wrote a report, not just for the Zeltharan Council, but for all beings who might read it. It was a story of two worlds coming together, of pride giving way to humility, and of the power found in kindness and understanding. She wrote about pain, not just as a test of the body, but as a journey of the heart. She wrote about strength, not just as muscles or technology, but as courage, love, and the will to keep going. When the day came for her to finally return to Zelthera, Virelia felt ready. She said goodbye to the friends she had made, the doctors, the patients, the children, And most of all, Eli. Standing on the spaceport, she looked back at the blue planet she had learned to love. "I will come back," she promised quietly. "There is still so much to learn." The journey home was calm. Viralia carried with her not only data and reports, but a new heart, one full of hope, respect, and a deeper understanding of what it means to be strong. And so, the arrogant alien doctor who once thought humans couldn't stand pain had learned the greatest lesson of all. That true strength is not about being unbreakable, but about being brave enough to face pain, feel it, and still choose kindness.